Lotus has never seen the filming process before, and she is looking at me like, what are you doing, you crazy girl? Look at her on her tower. I love her so much. Hey guys, what's up? I have not filmed a video talking about books in literally a month. I think it's only been, I've only missed 2 weeks for you guys, but I don't know what happened to me after I got my cat. Like, all motivation to do anything just kind of completely left my body, and I just wanted to hang out with her. And now that we are pretty much settled in, she's been here for almost a month. She's eating some of her leftover breakfast right now, if you can hear her. But yeah, we've been chilling together for a month. Things are going great. I appreciate all of the sweet comments that I got on the video that I made about her, but it's time to get back into the swing of booktube, and I don't know, I've just been putting off filming again for some reason, so apologies if this is a rough one. But we got to talk about our March books. It's already almost halfway through April, so I figure it's high time to talk about these. March was a better reading month than I was expecting it to be. I was thinking that I was not going to read very many books in March, but I ended up reading 8 books for a total of 1,781 pages. Can you keep it down over there, please? I read 57% nonfiction and 43% fiction. 4 of the books were from NetGalley. There were a lot of new releases that I was able to get to in March. 3 were books that I owned, and 1 was a physical ARC advanced copy. So yeah, we've got some memoirs, an essay collection, a poetry collection, and some literary fiction. So if that is also your thing, you should definitely subscribe and we can chat about all of the books that we're reading. Can you guys see her back there? She's gonna be such a distraction from here on out. I promise I will try my best not to just talk about my cat the entire time. So yeah, let's get started with our first book of the month. I received an advanced ebook of There Lives a Young Girl in Me Who Will Not Die by Tove Ditlevsen. I rated this one 4 stars. This was published by FSG. It came out on March 11th, so if you're interested in it, you can get it now. If you've been following along on the channel for a little bit, you'll know that I am not super into poetry, but I am trying a little bit more this year to read more poems. And I previously really loved Tove Ditlevsen's Copenhagen trilogy. I actually kind of want to reread those books sometime this year, maybe soon, I don't know. She also has a novel called The Faces that wasn't my favorite, but I still liked. So she's one of those authors that is just kind of on my radar, and whenever I saw that this poetry collection was available on NetGalley, I was like, let me try it out. Let me see what's going on here. I really enjoyed how simple these poems were. They were super interior and addressed a lot of things that happened in Tove's childhood. I feel like the structure of the book almost aligns with the Copenhagen trilogy because I guess since they're in chronological order, we kind of see her progression from childhood to young adulthood to her later years. So we see her childhood trauma, we see the tumultuous relationships that she went through, and we also kind of get her own perspective on her children once she became a mother. Because the book was in chronological order, it was really cool to see how her writing style evolved throughout the years as she matured. My favorite sections of the book were A Woman's Mind, The Secret Window, and The Adults. And I also really loved the foreword by Olga ravn and the translator's note that was included in the book. And yeah, like I said, this made me want to reread the Copenhagen trilogy. I enjoyed these poems. I don't really have anything super deep to say about them. I think that Olga does a really great job of digging into that a little bit deeper in the introduction if you do pick it up. So yeah, solid poetry collection. After that, we had another NetGalley book, and that was Permission by Elissa Altman. I also rated this one 4 stars. This one was also released on March 11th from Godine, I'm not sure, but thank you to them for the e-arc. So the subtitle for Permission is The New Memoirist and the Courage to Create, and I was really intrigued by the description, but going into it, I was unsure if it was going to be more of like a guidebook or more of a memoir, and I feel like Elissa Altman does a really great job of incorporating that talk about craft with the talk about her own personal experiences. I thought that this was an enjoyable read. Parts of it reminded me of The Abandoners by Begonia Gomez Urzáez, as well as Bodywork by Melissa Febos. Those were 2 nonfiction books that I've enjoyed in previous years. And I feel like she really does a great job of blending the idea of the mother that abandons with the writing about writing. So I think that if you enjoy hearing authors talk about their craft, this is a book that you would get something out of, even if you're not a writer yourself. I'm not, but I still found some really interesting parts of this. I believe Altman has published a couple other memoirs. I have not read any of them, but in this book, she is looking at the fallout that happened from one of the previous memoirs that she published, where she revealed that her paternal grandmother had abandoned their family almost 100 years ago, whenever Elissa's father was a young child. It's just one single paragraph within this entire memoir that mentions the incident, but because of that, she was completely cut off by the rest of her family members, and we see how much shame the other members of her family felt surrounding the situation, and just this idea that it wasn't Altman's place to tell that story, even though Altman herself was deeply affected by it. So we kind of have this triggering event that occurs, and using that, Altman is exploring the concept of permission in memoir writing. She's asking who gets to tell what stories, how do writers weigh the risks of writing about certain subjects, and how do you avoid writing to get revenge against another person. The chapters in this book were super quick, super engaging. She's really good at weaving in her family history, and I think that it is very clear how and why she is now a teacher of memoir writing. Even though I don't have any writing aspirations of my own, the book did make me think a little bit differently about how I use journaling and kind of freely working through my thoughts in a journal. I think if you do have writing aspirations, especially with memoir, I can see this being a super helpful book for you. So yeah, this was a good one. I have a quote from it. I believe she's talking about letters that her father had written to her grandmother, if I'm remembering correctly. It's been a little while since I read it, but I'm pretty sure that's the context. She says, "They are also emblematic of the mutability of memory and the fact that the truth can be filtered and extruded by individual circumstance and experience and still be very real to every person it touches, be it the same truth or different ones." So just talking about people's perceptions of events and how we all kind of have our own versions of things, and those versions are valid and you should be able to write about them. Next up, we finally have a physical book, and that is The Employees by Olga Ravn. This was probably my biggest disappointment of March, unfortunately. I rated this one 3 stars, and I just really thought that I was gonna love this. If you've been watching my videos this year, you will have heard me talk about I Who Have Never Known Men by Jacqueline Hartman, as well as On the Calculation of Volume. And those are 2 books that I found to be like sci-fi adjacent, but still very literary. And I surprisingly loved both of those books so much. 2 of my favorite books that I've read this year, to be honest with you. And I was thinking, since I had such a great experience with those, that I would absolutely love this one, and unfortunately that was just not the case. I do feel like I'm the last person in this kind of corner of the internet to get to this book. I feel like everybody that I watch on BookTube has talked about this already, but it just didn't quite hit the mark for me personally. those other books that I mentioned, there is quite the lack of answers. There's not a lot of context about the situations that we're in. And I really like that about those other books, but The Employees really leans into that lack of context in a way that just took away from my enjoyment of the book. So this book is told in a series of these really fragmentary, kind of scrambled statements from both humans and humanoids who are working on a spaceship. And if you haven't read the synopsis of this book, I feel like that might be kind of difficult to pick up on if you just like go into this one blind. I don't know. I feel like you're just kind of thrown into it, and even though I knew what the premise was, it still felt confusing to me. It's not until the end of the book that we do start to get some pages that kind of frame the whole book as this corporate document being written by the HR team of the company that has sent out this spaceship to explore the universe. I wish that we had gotten more of that, like, corporate document structure in the beginning as a way to kind of set the scene and set the story. Yeah, this just felt very, very difficult to grasp for me personally. The prose is really gorgeous, and she does do a really great job of making you appreciate the mundane details of our life here on Earth. Those things that if you were on a spaceship, you would miss about being here. So that was definitely my favorite part of it. But I just wish there was a little bit more connective tissue. I just needed a little tiny bit more from this one. I do really love this edition though. Oh my goodness. After that, we went back to NetGalley to read In the Rhododendrons by Heather Christle, I think is how you pronounce her last name. I rated this one 3.5 stars and received this from Algonquin on NetGalley. It was, or actually it will be released on April 15th, so that's coming up in a few days here. The subtitle of this book is A Memoir with Appearances by Virginia Woolf. So we had a lot of new release memoirs on NetGalley this month. And this book does pretty much just what the subtitle says. It intertwines the life of our author, Heather, with the lives of Heather's mother and Virginia Woolf. She uses various gardens and buildings throughout England to kind of trace a path between major events that were all mirrored in the lives of the three women. I really liked the deep dive into the mother-daughter relationship that is at the heart of this book, talking about Heather and her mother. They had a very tumultuous relationship when Heather was a teenager, and the task of writing about their bond without ruining their kind of patched up relationship, it was a very precarious situation for Heather to balance. I feel like there's almost a kind of connection to permission, which we talked about earlier, just kind of thinking about what parts of Heather's mother's story was she able to reveal in this book. So their relationship had the most emotional impact for me here, just kind of thinking about all of the misunderstandings and things that are left unsaid in any relationship, but I think especially a mother-daughter relationship. There is also, as the subtitle says, a lot of autobiographical content about Virginia Woolf. I think that it's presented in such a way that you don't need to be like an expert on Woolf's work, but you do need to be interested in her to be able to read this. I think if you don't like or don't care about Virginia Woolf, you are not going to be able to get into this. I've read a couple of her books. She's not like a favorite author of mine, but I am interested in her work and her life, so it just depends on your personal comfort level with her. Sometimes the connections that the author is making between Woolf's life and her own life felt a little bit far-fetched. I don't know. I do think that it was a really interesting exploration of how we can have really complicated feelings towards problematic authors. Heather does talk about a lot of the kind of racist things that occurred in Virginia Woolf's life, and I appreciate her calling that out and not just glossing over it, and kind of figuring out, like, can she balance that with her love of the writing? In the beginning, I thought this was going to be a 4-star read for me. I felt really engaged with it. I basically read the first third of the book in a single sitting. I thought that her authorial voice was very clear and entertaining, but still very informative. But as my life got kind of busy, and things just came up, you know, getting the cat. You guys are gonna be so sick of me talking about this cat. Everyone in my life is already like, oh my god, shut up. But yeah, as life got crazy, I just found it kind of difficult to get immersed in the later sections of the book. I think if I had read this in a shorter amount of time, it would have been beneficial, just because there's a lot of different people and places that are mentioned, and coming back to it after a little while was kind of disorienting. So yeah, 3.5 stars. If it sounds interesting to you, check it out in the next couple days here. Another new release, guys. Oh my gosh. We have Universality by Natasha Brown. This was a 4-star read for me. It came out on March 4th, and this copy of the book was sent to me by Random House. I haven't read Natasha Brown's other book, Assembly, but I have seen so much hype for it here on BookTube in the last couple of years, and I would be interested in checking that one out after reading this one. Universality is partly this news article, partly a novel, and it's a really thought-provoking look at the language of the political versus the personal, and the ways that we talk about class and race and privilege. So we start out with an article about a man who was bludgeoned nearly to death with a gold bar at an abandoned farm that was being used as this like anarchist communal living space. There was like a rave in this abandoned farmhouse with all of these people, and this dude just gets like knocked the heck out. We then spend some time with the author of the article, as well as the banker that owned the farm that was being used illegally, and another writer who is connected to the story. Most of the characters in this book are unlikable, but I think that it worked to the book's advantage and made its commentary feel even more poignant, and just made it clear what Natasha Brown was trying to do here. I really liked how she combined the different forms of like article and novel, as well as all of the different points of view from the characters. I thought that the writing was really sharp and snappy, and I feel like Natasha Brown was able to do a lot in not very many pages. So yeah, it wasn't my favorite thing ever, but I am intrigued to read her other novels, so I'm gonna count that as a win. All right, we're on our last new release that I read this month. I'm telling you guys, it was a crazy month for book releases. On NetGalley, I read Mothers and Other Fictional Characters by Nicole Graev Lipson. This memoir / essay collection was released on March 18th, and Chronicle Books provided me with a digital copy on NetGalley, so thank you to them. I thought that this essay collection was enjoyable when I was reading it, but I just don't think that it had a ton of sticking power for me. Like, even whenever I was writing this review a couple of days out from reading the book, I kind of felt that way, that I just didn't think I was gonna remember it. And here we are, I don't know, a couple weeks on for me finishing it, and I feel the same. I don't really remember a ton from it. Maybe if you're a mother yourself, this would hit a bit harder for you, because that is the main theme of the book. To me, it felt similar to A Life's Work by Rachel Cusk, which is one of my favorite Cusks, but this one just had less bite, and I don't know, maybe because I've read a lot of books about motherhood, it just didn't feel as impactful to me. In this book, Nicole Graev Lipson is exploring a lot of different facets of motherhood. She looks at her relationship with her own mother. She talks about her oldest child's gender expression, freezing her embryos, as well as how her son is learning about masculinity as he grows up. I thought the book was well written. I enjoyed the autobiographical elements that she included throughout the book, and it was just like a super easy breezy reading experience. But some parts of this book did make me feel, I don't know, just like a little bit weird, and I can't tell if I'm just being harsh or what the deal was with it. But the thing that sticks out to me in this book is the essay about her oldest child's gender expression. She has a lot of feelings about how her children either do or do not fit into, you know, societal gender roles. And I don't know, like the one about her oldest daughter and everything, just like, I don't know, it was just not a comfortable reading experience to me, and I can't tell if I'm justified in feeling that way. I think the author is really well-intentioned, and she obviously wants what is best for her children and wants to be progressive and supportive. But I don't know, some of the things that she was worrying about just felt like a little bit played out to me. I feel like she was very concerned about her daughter being a tomboy and whether or not her son should be allowed to play with a toy sword. And it just felt like, I don't know, just let the kids do what they genuinely want to do. Like I said, maybe it's different if you are a mother yourself. Maybe you will relate to her kind of worries and ideas. And like I said, maybe I've just read too many books that are kind of similar to this, and I'm just feeling a little bit burnt out with the subject matter. But it just didn't feel very groundbreaking to me. And yeah, I can just like remember the negative reading experiences that I had with those specific essays. So I don't know, maybe I was not the perfect target audience for this. So would be really interested to hear if any of you are mothers and decide to pick this up. Would love to hear your thoughts on those essays, because I don't know, I just can't really seem to figure out my thoughts on it. So yeah, 3.5 stars. After that, I read the Paris Trilogy by Colombe Schneck. I rated this 4 stars. This book was a Christmas gift, so I did not want to let it linger too long on my shelf. And yeah, I just was really excited for this one. I had specifically asked for it. 4-star read for me. I think if you, like me, love Annie Ernaux, then you should pick this up. I think that you would enjoy it. The book is made up of 3 shorter stories that I think would just be right at home on a shelf with Annie Ernaux's little tiny slivers of books. This has the same kind of slim, sparse memoir feel, although I do think that this is like a little bit fictionalized. It says that it's semi-autobiographical, so kind of part memoir, kind of not. The first story in here deals with the abortion that the author had when she was a teenager. Very similar to Happening by Annie Ernaux, and she does kind of mention Ernaux in the beginning of that and talks about how she is writing in response to Ernaux and kind of relaying her experience that was very similar in some ways but very different from Ernaux's. Because of their class and their education growing up, it made for very different circumstances. The second story really reminded me of Inseparable by Simone de Beauvoir, and I think the blurb of this does kind of compare it to Elena Ferrante. I'm thinking like Neapolitan novels, and the exploration of female friendship that's in there is maybe why they compared this to her. It talks about her best friendship and explores how their relationship changed throughout their lives, as well as the illness that ended up, unfortunately, taking her friend's life. The last story in here was about a romantic relationship that occurred after Schneck's divorce, and it also has to do with why there is a swimming pool on the cover of this. Talks about her love of swimming that she discovered later on in her life. So yeah, I have no complaints about this book. I didn't find the writing to be as like harrowing and haunting as Ernaux's writing is. And so maybe for that reason it had a bit less sticking power for me. Not to like keep comparing her to Annie Ernaux, but I feel like it just kind of comes with the territory. I mean, she's mentioned in the book. So yeah, I can't help but kind of think about this book in relationship to Erno's. But I thought that this was a really biting look into what it means to be a woman. Like, at the core of all of these stories, even though they're about different subjects, that is the main thread that unites all three of them. Also looks a lot at the female experience with sexuality, friendship, illness, love, all of those good things. I like that these 3 books were put together into one volume. You know, Annie Ernaux has all these little tiny ones, and I feel like if I had just read one little tiny one from here, I don't know if I would have been as interested to continue, if that makes sense. I like that it was kind of a taster of Schneck's writing. I don't think that any of her other books are translated into English as far as I could see, and I'm really hoping that some more of them do get translated because I would be interested in reading them. Okay, we're on to our final book for the month of March. This video was not as much of a shit show as I thought that it was gonna be. I actually am having a lot of fun filming this, and it is re-motivating me to get back on the booktube grind, so feeling good. The last book that I read in March was Asylum Road by Olivia Sudjic, another Christmas gift that I specifically requested because I love this author. I rated this one 4 stars. It did not hit as hard for me as her novel Sympathy and her nonfiction Exposure, but I thought that it was still an interesting novel. I think maybe if those other books of hers didn't work for you, this one might, because it does offer something a little bit different. A lot of this book has to do with the history of the Balkans and the war that the narrator escaped from, and I personally lack knowledge of that, so some context was missing for me, and that's just on me. I did do a little bit of research while I was reading it just to kind of orient myself within the story. But this book is talking about our narrator Anya and her boyfriend Luke. They go on multiple different road trips in this book. That's kind of the connecting thing throughout this whole book. And we're kind of uncovering the reasons why Anya's familial relationships are strained, as well as the breakdown of that romantic relationship between Anya and Luke. There's a lot of exploration of history and culture and their effects on this one woman's path in life. Talks a lot about the ways that Anya has been alienated and on edge because of what has happened in her past with the war and just like all of these things that were completely beyond her control but have impacted her so much. Sudjic does a great job of creating this sense of unease throughout the entire novel, and I thought that the ending of this one was pretty jaw-dropping. Definitely kind of a dark read, but very thought-provoking, and I think if you are more knowledgeable about the history of the area that she's talking about here, then you might be able to get like way more out of it. Like I said, it feels a little bit different from Olivia's previous books, and I just can't wait to see what she does next because she has 2 5-star books for me. So, you know, I'll take a 4-star from her as well, and hopefully we'll get some more 5 stars in the future. So there we have it, the 8 books that I read in March. April is off to a slow start, I will say. I was reading a pretty long book for the first like week and a half of the month, but hoping to pick up the pace a little bit now that we're, you know, making progress through April. I can't believe how quickly time is passing. It's crazy, but yeah, I hope you guys are all doing well. I feel very happy and content with life, and I hope that you guys do too, despite all of the shitty things that are happening in the world at large. I hope that you are all finding peace within your own, you know, individual lives. I feel like that's the most that we can ask for in a time like this. So yeah, hope you're all doing well, and I will see you very soon. Bye.